So, what was everybody's favourite bit so far? Let's talk. That's some spicy content. What's everybody's favourite bits? Before I give you mine. Dead as I live and breathe. Wait, what? Troll. Brits is the best bit. When my players want to have a backstory like that at level 1, so your character can say those things, but your character can even believe those things, but they're not true. Nice. Byron, just all of Byron was your favourite bit. Brit was your favourite. Granted, minor powers was your favourite bit. The identical brother at the bit. Fargrim dying. So much about it. Favourite bit, the look that you give Brit. Nice. No, Furbolg in episode 1, Karen. No, I'll talk about that in a bit. Brit's introduction, Byron standing up. Alan's peasant voice. You love Brit's lines, nice. I didn't interrupt your shitty little boring story after interrupting him. So, Lady Amory's, that's probably one of my favourite bits of the skit. Brit, Phoenix sitting practically under the table. Yeah, and there's so much of this that I love. So one of my favourite bits of this was one of the only jokes that I didn't actually write. So the only thing in this, I think, there may be a couple other little things, but the only thing I can think of that I didn't write in the skit was Brit throwing the line, throwing the introduction ball to Rowan's character, and Byron intercepting it. Initially in the script, I'd written it that she just. I did the power of threes essentially. I went. Cleric introduces his backstory, Bard introduces hers, and then Wizards is crazy and out there. And so she just passed the ball to the Wizard and he took it. And then on the day, whoever it was, Byron or Rowan or a combination or something, said like, because he says later, I didn't interrupt your story, did I? What if we have him actually interrupt his story at the beginning? And I was like, yeah, 100%, do it. And it worked really well as well. They barely didn't even need to finish the pitch to me before I was like, yeah, 100%. Have change her line to be like tall, mysterious, hooded man, so it's very, very clear who she's talking to. And I went for it immediately because in my mind I'd already pitched Rowan's character as being the stereotypical edgelord. He was the broody edgelord with an edgy, mysterious backstory, and he was a lone wolf, and he'd min-maxed his character so that he could survive on his own. And I don't need a team, and he's one of these non-team player kind of characters at first. And so he had this edgelord backstory that I never intended to bring out, not in episode 1 anyway. And so it made really well for that he's about to give his brooding, mysterious Aragorn story, and he gets interrupted by the dwarf. So let's go through it again. Should we? Maybe I should go through the script first. Should I show you guys the script? Let's. Let me pop back over to the wanted screen while I quickly find my. While I quickly find the script. And then I'll show you the script as it was written. Maybe I should. I'll have to get permission from the guys, obviously, but that would be good Patreon content to put the scripts after they're released. Maybe put the script on my Patreon. I'll have a think about that. It might be a permissions issue with them being made and written for D&D for Viva. But I can show them on screen, I'm sure. Can I make it full page or something? Open with Google Docs. Give the scripts to Viva to put on their Patreon. Yeah, but then I'm giving them more money for them. I don't get any of their Patreon. I want it for me, Sparrow. Here we go. Let's go Chrome share. Bing! There we go. Level 1 backstories. Let's zoom in. Control. Level 1 backstories, written by Robert Hartley. This is the 5th draft version. Inside a tavern, cleric stands by a doorway and surveys. Darmakos, when you woke up this morning, sitting on top of your belongings was a letter. We see a letter in cleric's hands. The letter led you here to a very nice tavern in a small fishing town. The architecture is mostly wood, and the air is warm and smells of baked pies. We see the far table, and it has a small group of the party sitting there, each with an identical letter in front of them. You look around to see an out-of-place group of what could only be your fellow wannabe adventurers sitting at a table. You walk over to them. Cleric approaches the table. The others look up. A tiefling approaches your table. You may all start to introduce yourselves. So I see you got a letter too. You must be the ones I'm meant to meet. I guess so. Hello, I'm Aaron, a sword for hire. What I lack in experience I make up for in enthusiasm. Do you know what all this is about? I'm afraid not. I'm just following the instructions in the letter. But hey, I'm used to following orders. You see, I'm Damocos. I'm a cleric. When I was just 13, my little sister fell in the local river and nearly drowned. I couldn't do anything to help, so I prayed to anything that would listen, that if they saved her life, I would follow them blindly until the end. Fortunately, Lathander was listening. I kept my word, and ever since then, I have wandered this town looking to understand what the Morning Lord wants of me. He also granted me some minor powers. Cleric snaps their fingers and their eyes glow a warm golden colour while the door they entered through slams shut. It sounds a lot like my story, actually. Really? Don't know what's happened here to the cleric there. Really? No, but I wanted to go next. I'm an entertainer, a performer, a player, a musician. Those are all the same thing. I am from right here in this little town, and though I started as a busker on the streets, I'm now going to be quite well known in most of the bars. I found my letter in my tip jar last night. How about you, little man? How were you called to be a part of this trial team? We see Wizard. Well, you'll all have heard of me already, because I'm extremely famous around this continent and beyond. But for the benefit of those living in a cave for the last 20 years, I'm Fargrim the Great. Also known as Fargrim the Just, the Fearless One, the Divine Mage, or the Kraken Killer. Dude, you've slain a kraken. Don't interrupt. I'm commander of the renowned orc hunting special operatives team, the Tuskbreakers. A 2-time slayer of chromatic dragons. Dragons? You've killed 2 dragons already. You're being very rude. And I happen to be the only name that sends a shiver down the spine of the fearsome Lich King Thradavis the Cold. A Lich King? You, at first level, at this stage in your life or whatever, have killed a Lich King? Look, I didn't interrupt your stories, guys. I'm just here introducing myself. No, we're sorry. It seems like you've achieved quite a lot in your life. Oh, you don't know the half of it. I'm also known as the Tarask Tamer, and not without good reason. The party's dumbfounded looks are cut short by the arrival of the tavern owner. Ah, you folk look like adventurers. Thank the gods for that. If you slay the vermin that have overrun my tavern, I will pay you 1 gold piece each. Fine, we accept. Where are these rats? Ah, here's one now. A giant rat runs up and attacks Wizard. We hear a d20 off screen. Ooh, that's a crit, sorry. Wizard instantly dies. There's a long moment of awkward silence. The rat bites the dead wizard again. Bard stabs the dead rat, and then the camera reveals another identical wizard next to him at the table. Oh no, my identical brother Fargrim! Luckily I can set out on this quest to avenge him. Who the 9 hells are you? You may have heard of me. I'm Targrim the Great, Targrim the Just, the Fearless One, the Divine Mage. Yada yada yada. That's the script as it was written on the day, as it was written for the day of. This is the draft as it was by the day of filming, and then we changed it in the edit a little bit to add in a voiceover line to make it a little clearer and such, and we trimmed out a couple of the shots of the Tarask Tamer and things. It was deemed unnecessary in the edit. You guys talking about the font. That is the script writing font. I can't remember what it's actually called, but it's the font for script writing. What are your thoughts on RPG campaigns on the internet with programs like Tabletop and other tools? Do you think it's good when you can't have it present, or isn't worth much for beginners? It's absolutely worth it if you can't play in person, but it's much better to play in person if you can.
Democrats.
Yes, Cyberkiller. In one of the earlier drafts, I had somebody else accepting and the wizard refusing, being like, "I'm better than 1 gold piece for killing rats." Psh, blah blah blah.
When you woke up this morning, sitting on top of your...
Oh, and in one of the earliest drafts, I had the entire thing starting as black screen, and then Damocos, and then as he says Damocos, Adam materializes out of smoke, and he's just in the black void. He says, "When you woke up this morning, there was a letter," and he looks down, and there's a letter in his hand, materializes out of smoke, and it's like the very beginning of the campaign, and so nothing exists yet until the DM says it into existence. The letter brought you to a tavern, and then he's standing outside of a tavern, and then he walks through the door, and we see the tavern inside. But having him outside just for the shot of walking in means that we have to find a different location to have to work as the exterior of the tavern. Blah blah blah. So that's why it was draft 5. All those sorts of things get ironed out as you go. Never heard of Lathander before this skit and still basically know nothing. He's, to sum him up, a friend of mine, a D&D friend of mine, Brad, who's actually one of the finalists for the DM challenge that's currently ongoing with the Wizards of the Coast. They're giving him a challenge every week, him and some other contestants, and every week there's somebody dropping off. He got accepted as one of the 10 finalists, and he's still in it. I think they're down to like the top 4 or something now, and he's still in it. He's a very good DM. Apparently. I was talking with him about it on Twitter, and he says his objection to Lathander is that Lathander's just like the goody-goody Boy Scout kind of can do no wrong, infallible Superman kind of type, where it's like boring because he's kind of flawless, which is perfect for Damocos. It's exactly the type of god that I wanted him worshipping.
Belongings was a letter. You look around, it's an out-of-place group of...
So we cut the lines in I had Alan record the lines for the second paragraph of the introduction that ended up getting cut, being like, you walk into a tavern that smells like this and blah 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 blah. It was an interesting balance that I had to make because I wanted it to be a reminder to people watching that in a game of D&D it's all imagination. Like you don't have a tavern to look at kind of thing, and so the DM has to describe the tavern, the smells, the sounds, the air, the temperature, everything. The DM describes it so that you can visualize it.
My passive perception is 20.
Thank you, Grubra.
I see you following me.
And so I wanted that sort of tell element of the narration, but in a visual medium like this, you are also seeing the tavern, so you don't need to describe it. So I wanted it to be a reminder that that the player who's playing this cleric is only actually seeing the tavern through the DM's description of it. But in the edit, it didn't come across that way, and it just ended up being tell don't show, and it was like, now we're already seeing it, so we don't need the extra lines from Alan describing the tavern as well. Is the barkeeper a dragonborn? It does look like there's something weird going on with that barkeeper's head, doesn't it? I did notice that. But this is like a cooked chicken or something hanging from a thing in front of his head, and then sausages behind that. But that's David.
What could only be your fellow wannabe adventurers sitting at a table.
We had 2 different ideas for how to do the DM on the day. When we were tossing between the two, well, we had a lot of different ideas, but we had 2 main ideas of how to do the DM on the day. Voiceover, like this. You don't see the DM. He's just an omniscient's not the right word, an omnipresent voice that just kind of is in the room. Or we have a pan up to the ceiling, and he is behind a DM screen in the ceiling, kind of like looking down at you, and like behind him just blends back into the ceiling, like they're looking up at a god. And I didn't think that second one was necessary for this scene because of all the narration at the start and everything, like making it clear that there's some other narrator voice talking, and making it clear what that this voice that you're hearing of Alan's voice. And with it being Alan's voice, I thought it would be even more clear because people would recognize Alan's voice and be like, "Oh, that's Alan," and so they're even more likely to understand that he's not in the scene. He therefore is some sort of otherworldly thing. But it didn't really work out that way, because in the edit, one of the hardest things for this skit to edit was trying to make it clear to the people watching where this voice was coming from and what he was saying and things. And so. We had to add in an extra line for Alan as the rat attack, saying, "All right, first roll of the campaign, let's see how it goes," just to give that sort of lead into him, instead of just the first thing we hear is just clack on the table, clack, clack, clack. Oh, that's a crit. It just wasn't clear enough who was talking. It was weird that it was Alan. I'm used to hearing Rob being DM. Yeah. We attempted to cut to real life with the whole party? No. absolutely not. We decided very early on that's not going to happen. We wanted the entire thing to be in the character's world. So the only way to show the DM in character world, if we want to show the DM, we had two options for if we want to show it. Either we pan up and show him in the ceiling looking over a DM screen, or we have him just like appearing in mufti clothes like I did in some of the green screen cutaways for D&D Logic, for D&D. Where I just kind of walk in from the side and I'm like, this is how rage works. Doing it like that kind of way. So we're still... I reckon we'll see how it goes for the rest of this season with just disembodied voice. And then if it still just gives us too much headache in the edit for season 2 and 3 and whatever beyond, we might go to one of those other options of showing Alan panning from the ceiling or whatever. So many aren't recognizing Alan right away. Yeah, there are so many comments saying like, where's Alan? Why isn't Alan in this skit? I really like how the DM turned out, and that line does really help. Yeah, it helps a lot. It's not that it doesn't sound like Alan, it's that Alan was calm. I'm not used to panicky Greg or agitated Alan. Yeah. I'm not doing tongue twisters right now. I'll redeem that later. Alan is harder to recognize only because he's not cracking up. So yeah, I like that as an establishing shot of them. It doesn't give away Wizard.
Wannabe adventurers sitting at a
but it shows the wannabe adventurers sitting at a table enough. Is Brit barreling the camera there? Kind of seems like she is. No, it was just their eyes were just skimming over it for a second from something behind Wizard to Tamika or whatever. Just the composition of this shot. I love it so much, and I'm going to talk about it for a second. For a start, let's talk about the art department and how much of an incredible job they did. This location that we're filming this is the next room over from... So, like, if you were to go this way, off camera right, the room that side is where we film Viva la Dirt League D&D. This room that we're currently in, just over here, is usually where the behind-the-scenes stuff is set up for Viva la Dirt League D&D. It's like the cameras and all of the live editing equipment and stuff, so that they're currently like flipping between 5 different cameras and stuff like that. So this is where we filmed D&D. It was just perfect as a tavern as well. This is a mirror that is mounted to the wall, and it can't be removed. So it's got this fantastic frame to it, but the art department have stuck in a painting to make it look like a painting rather than a mirror. And likewise with the one behind Adam as he walks in. I think you see it in the
sitting on top of your belongings was a letter.
That one there, that is a portrait mirror, and they've changed it into a portrait. Over his shoulder as well, this is a big sign that says toilets, and so they covered that up with something,
when you
made
woke
it into a coat rack.
This morning, sitting on top of your belongings was a letter.
They've added things like that lantern that was just hanging on the thing there. This one here, this like lantern here, they've added that. All of this stuff on top, like the barrels exist in the location, but all the goblets and candles and fruit and baskets of things like that, all set decoration, all art department.
You look around, it's an out-of-place group of what could only be your fellow.
The bar top obviously normally has like bottles and glasses hanging from here, so the location gave us permission to move everything from the bar and replace it with our own sort of thematic
Hello, wannabe adventurers sitting at a table. The rest of you are enjoying your drinks when a tiefling approaches the table.
And then let's talk about costume. Costume is one of my favourite things about this series and the whole process. The art department and costume department did such a tremendous job. So shout out to Cece and Jimmy and Bryony and Gabby and everybody else who worked on that and the costumes and stuff. Absolutely tremendous job. I just love them. I love them so much. They're all just right there in my head what I was expecting. Furbolg is the only one that's like hardest to do exactly how I wanted in my head, because to get him exact he would have been even taller and he would have been furrier on the face and stuff, but it requires so much expensive and expansive prosthetics and things that I just kind of had to compromise a little with the Furbolg. But literally, Furbolg is, I think, the only costume that I had to compromise in any way at all. Was I pointing with my cursor? My bad. So then here for setup, they just set up around a bunch of chairs at the table, and I said, actually, can we get a higher stool for Emmett to sit on and a smaller stool for Phoenix to sit on? And I just snapped my fingers and it happened. It was another instance of this godlike power on the day. I was just like, I don't like that chair, make a bigger one. And there was just a bigger chair. The next moment I looked across, there's a bigger chair in the place now. It's pretty freaking awesome. And so Emmett is sitting there with his knees above the edge of the table, and then Phoenix is next to him. Of course, I wanted Phoenix next to him. And then on the day, I did have to put some thought into like who goes where in order that he can be introduced to us two. We decided that we'd be the ones sitting next to him, and then we wanted Rowan and Byron sitting next to each other so that they could have like a back and forth in a 2-shot, so that so that we don't have to worry about overlapping lines. They can cut each other and stuff. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a Furbolg. Sweet reference. Stupid but cunning. All right. So I also made sure that Phoenix got the largest mug possible, and we give Emmett the smallest mug possible, so that in their hands, in the single close-ups and things, it looks like they're even bigger. Just a bit of what's it called? A bit of forced perspective. Power hungry Rob, that's me.
I see you all got a letter as well.
They gave us, like you can see Emmett actually eating there.
Your drinks when a tiefling approaches the table.
All of this stuff, you can't quite see it in this shot, but maybe in another shot you'll be able to see. Behind this like jug and vase, water jugs and stuff, is a very beautiful, kind of like you'd see laid out in a still life drawing. A bunch of different baked breads, rounded loaves, and handfuls of nuts and seeds and things, and just generally tavern snack food. And it was all real food that we could nibble on during the scenes and things. They just asked us to try and maintain our own continuity. And then we were drinking either sparkling grape juice or some other thing that kind of looks like appropriate drink. Same as it was funny to see Byron get up and only rise a couple of inches, it would also be funny if the Goliath was sitting low and stands up to be extremely tall. Yeah. How many SFX artists have you got for prosthetics and stuff? And we had 2 dedicated makeup artists on set, and then CC is costume and props, but also can help with makeup and stuff as well. But two dedicated makeup artists. And we made sure to stagger the call times so that Emmett was first in the day and took like 2 hours to get into his makeup with all of his Lieren and bald cap and stuff. And then Adam, I think, was an hour and a half after him. Who's the good-looking blue guy? This blue guy or this greyish blue guy? Was it hot in the room with the fire going and in costume? Well, no, it's just coming into spring now, so it was shot in the middle of winter, and it was relatively cold. Except for Byron, who is like a walking mattress. He is, to make him stocky like a dwarf, we've like padded him out. He's wearing this huge padded suit, the same one that I'm wearing in the latest episode of Viva La Dirtly D&D. So he's wearing a lot of layers. Emmett was very cold because he had his completely sleeveless and he had his chest showing and just basically wearing nothing in the middle of winter. You'd moved to New Zealand to work as an SFX artist. Awesome, Lilith. There's a blue guy on the left. Don't remember seeing the actress that plays the orc before. You haven't seen her in a VLDL skit yet. She's in some that are coming out, I think. And she's worked with me a bunch of times. She went to drama school with me. I think she was the year after me at drama school. Her name's Tamika, and she's wonderful. Adam has come to crash your BTS. Not enough that he had his own one. Yeah, not enough that he stole my thunder by stealing my BTS before I had a chance to do it. He's now come to crash mine and steal all my thunder here as well. I've already said I'm going to kill off your character, Adam. I'm gonna give you lots and lots of dialogue in the next series. I'm gonna give you like just huge paragraphs to read with lots of complicated words. tongue twisters, and I'm going to have you in a prosthetic second head or something. You're going to get developed troll powers, and then I'm going to kill you. What is BTS? Behind the scenes. Does Tamika stream? No, I don't think so. All right, let's carry on.
I see you.
Oh, and yeah, Emmett just could not stop eating the bread, because he had no lines in this scene, because he was kind of background extra to fluff out the table. Sorry, mate. I'm sure you've got some cool new perspective. Yeah, I know. I'm only messing with you, Adam. We have very different perspectives of the stuff on the day.
You all got a letter as well. You must be the ones I'm here to meet.
I guess so.
Art department again. I know I've already shouted them out for their awesomeness, but the letters that they made, they asked me beforehand,
My
like,
passive
hey, what do
perception
the
is
letters need to be?
24.
Bag and
I see you
Frodo's, thank you
following
very
me.
much for the follow. What do the letters need to have on them? And I was like, whenever we're going to get a close-up of the letter, you don't need to have them anything other than just a piece of parchment-looking stuff, like olden-day parchment kind of stuff, with a wax seal on them. That's fine. But they went above and beyond by making it actually
you
a
all
letter
got
that
letters.
says, like, it's a wanted for adventuring purposes. Come to the so-and-so tavern at this time on this day, and yada, yada, yada. Reward, 10,000 gold, whatever. And it was like an actual decent... it was an actual proper letter.
Well, you must be the ones I'm here to meet.
I guess so. I'm Aaron.
I love that the only take where I fucked up my timing of when I was eating the bread, and I was like, I didn't realize that we were going for a take, and I took a big chunk of bread. I thought it was just going to be like an establishing shot. They just wanted one of the table, so I was just doing some background acting of like drinking and taking a big bite of bread and stuff. And I took a big bite of bread, and then I heard Adam approach the table and went, I see you're the ones we're here to meet. So I had a big mouthful of bread, and I've got the first line. And that happened on only one of the several takes that we did, and of course it's the take that ends up in the fucking episode. So I got a big mouthful of bread that I have to quickly stuff into my right cheek so that I can still talk.
So, I'm Aaron. A sword for hire. What I lack in experience, I make up for in enthusiasm.
So you can see I've got a little bulge in my cheek.
A sword for hire. What I lack in...
I've got this bulging cheek out because I've got bloody bread stuffed into my gums. It's realistic though, yeah, I know. Shouldn't it have been Aaron? No, I named him Aaron after myself, but I spelt it in the way that people would understand it. Aaron with one A is quite a rare spelling of the name, and I didn't want people getting confused about what his name was.
In experience, I make up for in enthusiasm.
So that line there is to... So I was trying to represent a lot of different backstories that you stereotypically get in D&D. There's the backstory of the guy who literally has no backstory. He's never thought about he's made a fighter. He's turned up on the day. That's all his investment is. Icy Ice, thank you for the follow. So my guy is such a cliche of a fighter. Essentially, he's human fighter, which is already like the blandest character that you can be. And then I also specifically gave him no backstory. He's a sword for hire. And I was representing all of the people in the game who only ever turn up with a really bland character and don't think about where they came from. Oh, I'm not very experienced, but I'm very enthusiastic. That's like a one-line backstory.
Do you know what this is all about?
I don't, sorry. I'm just following the instructions of this letter.
I'm just following the instructions of this letter, but I'm used to following orders. That's the mental leap that he's doing. That's the connection between this thought and the next. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just following the instructions. But hey, I'm used to following the instructions because I follow instructions from my god all of the time. That's the logical progression of this scene. Could Adam remember this little connector here? He could not. Not on the day. We went through so many takes of Adam going, fuck, what is my next line? How do I connect from I'm following instructions in the letter to I'm a cleric? And so, but hey, for some reason just wasn't sticking in his head. It's just one of those things that happens on the day. You're just like, nah, for some reason this line's just not sticking. But hey.
But hey,
and so it came to the point where he had to think about, I don't know, him and Britt talked about how am I gonna remember this next line, and Britt was like, well, horses eat hay and horses have butts. so he was like, butt hay. And so for some reason he would just imagine a horse's butt sitting on some hay or something, and they'd be like, but hey. In D&D, are you expected to give your whole backstory in one go, Rob, or wait for people to ask those questions? It's up to the party and the table and things. That was one of the things that I wanted to represent in this skit, how weird it is that this stranger's just approach the table and they all just start spouting off their whole life story because of how ridiculous that is in game, that happens. It depends, Fiendish. I tend to personally, because I'm a big role player, I tend to just wait for the backstory to come out. I make sure that I got the backstory and I have told it to the DM, so the DM knows how to include my backstory and stuff. But I don't tell the other players at the table what my backstory is until it comes out in roleplay. But if you're not in a big role-playing game, a role-playing group, like there's not a lot of actors in the group and things, and you're not going to have lots of scenes where you just sit around a campfire and talk for an hour in real life, then maybe you just tell your party, hey, this is my backstory. You probably would hear about it in the next few days as we spend some time together, as we travel, blah, blah, blah. I actually do that as well quite often in game. Like, if we skip some time, if we like say, oh, you set off from the city and you make it to the next city 8 hours later, I'll be like, well, my character wouldn't have just walked for 8 hours in silence. So as we arrive at this new place, I just say out of character, hey, as we were walking, I was probably telling you about my life. You would have learned that I've this, and this, and I've got 2 kids at home, and I blah, 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 and I yada, yada, yada. So a little bit of both is basically the answer. Do you direct this one too, as well as being in it? I do, yeah. So I was a co-director. I was the creative director, and I also had a technical director. So my technical director was keeping a track for me of all the different shots and things that we needed to actually get complete. He would go through with me at the top of every skit when we moved to set up in a new location. He would approach me and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. Walk me through what you're thinking, and we'd work together on his iPad with his little like kind of like a football commentator's breakdown, where he'd put little circles and arrows pointing. Oh, and he's gonna banana around here, and then end up at the table at the back here, and then blah blah blah, and then these guys look this way, and we're gonna be shooting the whole thing from over here. We'd go through all that technical stuff, and then it was up to me to just keep a track of the creative stuff, make sure all of the lines worked for the world of D&D and everything like that. So yes, I was directing, but this was one of the harder ones for me to direct because I couldn't move. I was in almost every shot because I was in over the shoulder, or I was in a wide, or I was next to Adam who was doing the talking and stuff. So I couldn't just be getting up and moving every time. As well as me being in quite heavy armor, it was the end of the day when we were shooting this skit, and so I was already sitting down, and my sword was uncomfortable, and I was in a position. I was in the one position that I could actually sit in, leaning back on the chair kind of thing. And if I had to get up, I'd have to kind of rock to the side and get the weight under me, and then go around behind the camera to see that everything was perfect. Yeah, okay, and then I'd have to go sit back down again. So for this skit, I largely just left it to the actors to know what they were doing, and to the technical director to make sure he was getting the technical shots.
About.
I don't, sorry. I'm just...
I just love how Phoenix is so small next to Emmett. It's so good.
Following the instructions of this letter. But hey, I'm used to following orders. My name's Demokos. I'm a cleric. When I was just
a minor cutaway. I didn't realize that he'd got a close-up of me doing that. I just kind of did that off the cuff, as a kind of a very subtle hint towards how very few parties have healers, and because few people actually want to be the healer, and so it's always like a, oh thank fuck moment when somebody comes along saying that they've chosen to make a healer. What's the armor made of? Some kind of metal. It's not foam armor that I'm wearing. It's like real armor. Are you saying you're not proficient in heavy armor in real life? I think that's what I've determined, Truth Seeker, yeah.
13, my younger sister fell in the local river and nearly died.
Fun fact, in one of the earliest drafts of this skit, Damokos was a warlock. I initially had him as a warlock, and he was giving, it was basically the same backstory, but the thing that answered wasn't Lathander, it was some sort of fiend instead, and he was going to be a fiendish warlock of some kind. But then when we went through all of the different races and classes and things, and went, we need to cut like 4 of these classes out, I was like, Warlock has the least interesting character so far. I haven't fleshed out who Warlock is, so I'll just change all of Warlock's things to other people's lines. And so Damokos became a cleric instead.
Oh!
A new adventure.
Cut pull on
I couldn't save her, so I prayed
I
to
try hide
anything
in the
that would
shadow.
listen that if they saved her life, I would follow them blindly until the end.
Till the end.
Fortunately, Lathander was listening.
Lathander was listening. So Lathander is a goody goody two shoes god from the Forgotten Realms. I wanted the names to all be from the book, and all of the gods and things to be published gods of D&D, so that it was like set in D&D definitively. Rua introduces herself as a cleric to raise hopes that are dashed when they hear she's a Tempest cleric. Yeah, yeah, I'm a cleric. Lightning bolt. So the one major fear that I had about doing it that way was that although it's good for sucking in people from the D&D world, D&D community, to watch the videos because they'll have gods that they recognize and stuff. The danger is I don't work my games in the Forgotten Realms. I don't use published content in my own games, so I'm very unfamiliar with all of this shit. I don't really know the lore behind Lathander and stuff. So I read his wiki page about who Lathander was and who his clerics tend to be and stuff. But I can guarantee that at some point in the series, even maybe not in season 1, but at some point there will be actually Lathander's clerics never do that because the tenets of Lathander say that you must never do harm by blah 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 blah. There'll be one of those, I'm sure. Also, I'm already expecting that, which I haven't seen in the comments yet, but I only read and replied to the first 1,000, so they may well be more comments about it since then. That Lathander is not meant to be blue. Lathander's clerics tend to wear oranges and reds because his I wonder if you can see it. Can you see it in the wide, maybe?
Until the end. Fortunately,
I wonder if you can see it in the wide.
A new
when I was
adventure.
just
Enjoy.
13, my
Thank
younger
you
sister
very
fell in the
Hey,
local
almost a year.
river and
a
nearly
year.
died.
All about.
There you go. You can kind of see it in the wide. His symbol is covered by his bag strap, but you can see that it's a circle with a horizontal line through the middle, another semicircle above that, and then radial lines from that semicircle. And it's essentially a setting sun. It's the horizon, it's in a circle, it's a horizon with a path going towards it, to the middle, and then a setting sun. And Lathander's symbol is the setting sun. And so all of his clerics are meant to wear like oranges and reds, but we'd already established that the cleric was going to be a very muted blue coloration. All of the... where do mansplainers get their water? From a well, actually. Love it. So each of the characters kind of had a color theme to it. Phoenix's was red, and Damokos's was blue, and the Wizard's was orange, and the Ranger's was green, all that sort of thing. So each of us had like a themed color to different degrees, and so I decided it doesn't matter. He was never a follower of the Thunder in his early life anyway. So when he became a follower of the Thunder, he just kept with wearing what sort of colors he wanted to wear. I have a lot of comments being like, tieflings can't be blue. And I'm like, tieflings can be whatever the fuck color I want them to be. Because not only am I the god of the world and I can make tieflings whatever I want, tieflings literally can be blue in the rules. Rules as written. Ever since the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide was released, which was one of the earliest modules for 5e, tieflings can be blue. So even the actuallys are getting it wrong.
I don't, sorry. I'm just following the instructions of this letter. But hey, I'm used to following orders. My name's
I really
Democles.
love his aesthetic. I love the ram's horns. We went through a couple of different options for him with horns, but I love the ram's horns. I think they work really well.
I'm a cleric. When I was just 13, my younger sister fell in the local
I asked Phoenix to only ever drink with 2 hands.
river and nearly died. I couldn't save her, so I prayed to anything that would listen that if they saved her life, I would follow them blindly until the end.
We also talked, Adam and I talked about having Sclera contact him, because tieflings are not really meant to have the whites of your eyes showing. They're meant to be just like all one colour. But I didn't want to put him through the extra uncomfortable situation of having to wear them just for the sake of the eyes. It's a minor enough detail. How are the horns affixed? I'm not 100% sure, but I think that they are. I think there's like a wire over the top of his head, and then they're like affixed to his side. You'd have to ask Adam, but Adam, are you still in the chat? Can you reflect on how the horns are affixed? I never actually got the ins and outs of that makeup detail. Super glue, yeah, super glued on. They're affixed using sovereign glue, which is a legendary item in D&D that literally glues any two surfaces together.
My passive perception is 24. I see you following me.
McNutty Dubs, thank you for the follow.
My passive perception is 24. I see you following me.
Give 'em the old razzle dazzle. I think I scared Adam off by saying that I was going to kill his character off. You missed my math joke earlier. If I had 50 cents every time someone told me I was bad at maths, I'd have $8.40. I'm going to have to remember that one. I like that one. Oh man, if I had 50 cents. Now you will, because he stole your BTS, right? No, I will. What? Oh no, the ins and outs of his prosthetics. I just didn't cut off his horns that morning. Yeah, that's all. That's all it was. I just asked him to grow out his horns that he normally trims. Not gonna lie, you are a man of many talents. Quite an addition to the team. Thank you positively. You're very positive. D&D question: does the DM typically provide minis, or should you get your own? A bit of both. Some DMs don't use minis at all. They use what's called theatre of the mind, where everything's just in your heads. If they do use minis, then they usually provide them. But you may all work together and be like, hey, let's have a creative arts and crafts day where we all make our own minis out of paper or whatever. What equipment should you acquire? Get yourself a nice set of dice and some paper and pen, or an app that you like using. Get the player's handbook if you really want to splash out.
Fortunately, Lathander was listening, and I have dedicated my life to him and have been granted.
This was a fucking mission to get. So his minor powers is Robert's in-character way of saying that he has thaumaturgy now. He has cantrips and a couple of level 1 spells, and that's about it. He's saying that I'm very minor. So the whole point I'm trying to drive home with Cleric's speech and the Bard's speech is that they are level 1 characters with level 1 backstories. He has minor powers. There's a few things, if you watch them back and you listen to the dialogue, there's a few dialogue sort of choices that I make in the adjectives and things that they use that sort of drive home I am not a powerful character. I've just been following my life, and she says like I started as a busker in this small town, blah blah blah. So she's talking about like small town backstories, and so I was really trying to set up the fact that these guys have given themselves level appropriate backstories, so that it then pays off when you suddenly see that juxtaposition with Wizard's Power. So he's using the cantrip Thaumaturgy, which specifically says you can change the colour of your eyes and you can make doors slam and things. For some reason, and I don't know what it was, this was one of the issues of me being in the scene as well as trying to direct the scene. I was telling the guy that was waiting outside, ready to slam the door, I kept saying, like, that needs to slam at the second he says, and I was granted, it should be, I've followed him ever since, and I was granted slam minor powers because he's going slam minor powers. But for some reason on the day we would just go and we must have taken like 6-7 takes of it at least. Every time it was, and I was granted close minor powers. I'm like, not close. So for two things. For a start, that's not when I wanted it queuing. And for a second thing, I wanted a slam. I need a slam. It needs to slam closed. He's using his thaumaturgy powers. It's meant to be like thaumaturgy. The whole sort of point of that spell is for clerics to be like, I am a cleric. I'm a vessel of my god. I have the ability to like slam doors shut or burst the windows open and whoosh, make the floor rumble a little bit and magnify my voice 3 times its normal size and normal volume, and my eyes I can glow with an evil red or whatever. Everything about thaumaturgy when you read it is about that sort of thing. It's about like being able to manifest a physical attribute of being a godly being. It's hardly godly to have, you have to focus on it for like 4 seconds before the door slowly closes. And no matter how I tried to get that point across on the day, we just couldn't get it and we needed to move on. So in editing, I had to ask the editor a couple of times, like we had to go back and forth a little bit on
And
getting
have
this
been
shot.
granted.
So I said, let's focus on him getting the eyes first, and put some sort of effect over his hand, and then have a cutaway reaction so that we can cut out some of that middle bit where there's nothing happening, and then cut back just as the door slams. And if we can speed up that door slamming, that'd be great.
Minor powers.
So we made it
Sounds a lot
work
like
in the
my
edit.
story, actually.
Really?
No.
Needed someone on Foley banging some wood on the
A
floor.
new
Yeah,
adventurer joins the team.
I feel it's funnier that it actually does almost nothing. Yeah, probably. Stealthy Druid, how's it going?
But I did want to go next. You see, I am a performer.
I had a lot of fun writing that line.
Actually.
Really?
No, but I did want to go next.
So even though Brit has been in the VLDL stuff before, and she's obviously very popular with the VLDL crowd, I wanted to make sure that she was right for the part. So she didn't have a guaranteed part. I wanted to audition her for it. So being that she was back in the country, I knew that I would want her to be in the series in some way. But I had her come and do an audition for Bard. I auditioned her for Bard and Druid, I think. And she took direction really well in the audition. I asked her to give me like a really over the top arrogant Bard, and she did that fantastically well. And then I said, okay, what I actually want from the character is that she's arrogant, but not because I don't want to double up too many character traits. So Wizard is super arrogant. That's kind of one of his major shticks. So I don't want Bard to be arrogant in the same way. There's different types of arrogance. His comes from like, I feel like I'm more powerful than everybody else in the group. And hers comes from, I feel like I've got more potential than anybody else in the group. So it's quite a subtle difference, but when I gave her that direction in the audition, she just absolutely nailed it. She gave me the right sort of reading of somebody who is arrogant about their current abilities, but more arrogant about what they think they have the potential of becoming. Somebody who's like, I'm going to win an Oscar one day, which was me originally. I was very much that person. Self-aware but proud. Yeah, self-aware but proud. I said, like, you are aware of the fact that you cannot accomplish very much right now. You are not a very powerful person. You only have level 1 spells. You are aware of that. But you're also aware that given the right circumstances, you will shine. You just haven't been given the right opportunity yet, sort of person. And so when she delivered that line, it was just spot on.
That sounds a lot like my story, actually.
Really?
No, but I did want to go next.
To go next.
You see, I am a performer, an artiste.
We never got a shot of it, but we thought about getting a shot of her putting the feet up from Phoenix's, like a close-up of Phoenix on just peering over the table, and then Bard's feet coming up and just like blocking her even more. It just didn't flow with the final edit, so we didn't have a cutaway of that. Did you win a play button instead of an Oscar? I think I did, Kate Gladder, yeah.
A mime. A musician.
Also, you can tell from the script that I showed you that this line is completely different to how it was.
A player. An artiste.
She just kept going with it.
A mime.
She kept forgetting all of the things that were actually written. Because I think I put 3 things in the script that are all actually synonyms for each other. And so my line made sense to be like, those are all the same thing. But she kept forgetting what those 3 things were, so she kept just coming up with more things like a mime. Which I loved. I think that was one of the... it was a good choice to make because it means that like her backstory is that she is trained in all the forms of performative arts.
Artiste. A mime. A musician. A player. A thespian.
I also love just this dad guy. Thank you very much for following. I love the fact that her strumming is just completely out of key. It's an out of tune strum, so she's like trained in all these aspects of performance, but she carries around an out of tune lute.
A mime.
You've never heard the word thespian?
A musician.
Yeah, it's
a player.
word for an actor.
A thespian.
Those are all the same thing.
Shh. I am from this small town, and though I did start a busker on the streets, now I am very well known in most of the bars.
So there's another little subtle indication that she's a level 1 character. She's very well known in most of the bars in this small town. That's the level that she's pitching at.
I received my
Sup,
letter
Dead
in
Aussie
my
Gamer?
tip
How's
jar
it going,
last
buddy?
night.
I also love the sound, the score there, that the editor has found a piece of banjo music that's all plinky plonky, I'm so good at performing kind of music, that wraps up nicely right as her performance wraps up.
Most of the bars. I received my letter in my tip jar last night.
Wonderful.
What about you, tall, mysterious, hooded man?
Mysterious man. So that's the one line that I didn't write, the one joke that I definitely didn't have a hand in, is her throwing to Rowan instead of to the wizard.
Thank you very much. No, seriously, you are too kind.
I also love that that's his reveal moment. We haven't until this point really seen him. We've seen like the very top of his head from behind, but we haven't seen Byron at all until this moment.
This hooded man.
The story of my...
And so we expect, as the audience, we're expecting that he's going to be like the mysterious edgelord about to give his backstory, and with him being Rowan, people are expecting him to have a larger part in this series than he will.
Thank you very much. No, seriously,
So
you
it
are
pays
too
off the
kind.
wo- pays off the joke
Probably
very well.
already know who I am because I'm extremely famous around this continent and beyond.
Well, I've actually never heard of you.
But for those of you who have been living under a rock for the last 20 years, my
Yes. I love his accent. He's so good at accents. 20 years.
name is Fargrim.
No one cares about the edgelord story yet.
Also known as Fargrim the Just, the Fearless One, or the Divine Mage, or the Kraken Killer.
Kraken, you've slain a kraken.
Don't
I love that little. That was another subtle joke there, because I very subtly changed my accent for the first Kraken. Kraken is more my own voice, and then so Aaron's voice is much more. He's well-spoken Englishman, and so my natural voice for Kraken comes through when I'm like. So I'm genuinely laughing at the table.
Kraken, you've slain a kraken.
Don't interrupt.
Extremely famous.
I also happen to be commander of the Orc Hunting Special Operatives Team, the Tuskbreakers.
Little nod to Dirk Tuskbreaker there.
2-time slayer of a chromatic dragon.
Dragons. You've killed 2 dragons already?
So here's the balance I had to do when I was writing it. I had to make sure that it was very clear to somebody who does not know anything about D&D, does not know the first thing about the fact that it's even a game where you slay monsters and stuff. It needed to be very clear to that person that what he's claiming to have done is much better than he can have possibly managed at his level. So most people, even if they've never played D&D, most people know what a kraken is, or they've heard of a kraken, either through mythology or through some sort of film like Clash of the Titans or Pirates of the Caribbean. They've heard of what a kraken is, and they at the very least they know, oh, it's a dangerous monster. Even if they haven't heard of a kraken, they've heard of dragons. And if they haven't heard of dragons, then they probably won't have heard of a lich, but hey.
For crying out loud, you're being incredibly rude. Would you zip it?
Zip it!
I also...
That's the sort of thing that Byron brings to the role, is that in the script, as we read before, you can see that it just said, like, hey, you're being rude, stop interrupting, or something like that. But he gives it all this, you've been incredibly rude, can you zip it? Just like, he makes it his own. It's really great. He's really great at that. You had to make it clear to someone that there are dungeons and also sometimes dragons. That's right. I have a doubt about what Fargrim says after Jaleth interrupts him. The subtitles say, for crying out loud, you're being incredibly rude. Wait. But my non-native listening has some trouble understanding the for crying out loud part. Doesn't he say the name of the god in there? No, he says, for crying out loud, you're being incredibly rude.
Crying out loud, you...
Dragons. You've killed 2 dragons already?
For crying out loud, you're being incredibly rude. Would you...
For crying out loud, you're being incredibly rude. Would you zip it?
Zip it! I also happen to sport the only name that sends the shivers down the spine of the fearsome Lich King, Thradis the Cold.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Lich King. What the fuck is even a Lich King? Ridiculous. What was I going to say? I've lost it now.
Lich King at level 1, or should I say?
That's what I was going to say. So this scene, I had Rowan do a couple of takes of this because I felt like the joke wasn't coming through. I needed the joke set up at this point for something that pays off later, that Rowan is the metagamer character. so I gave each person kind of a trope, like Ben is the person who's never listening, and Rowan's the metagamer, and Byron is the character that the player that wants his character to be the best one in the party, sort of thing, and the one that's not a team player, all that sort of stuff. And so Rowan is the metagamer, and the one that is least likely to talk in character at the table and be like, hey, how much HP are you on, and stuff like that. That's like, your character doesn't know how much HP they're on. And so I wanted the joke coming through clear here so that we can set that up going forwards. That he's the only one that actually this whole episode, I'm pretty sure he's the only one that says things in game terminology.
Sorry, I'm sorry. A Lich King at level 1, or should I say, sorry.
And he's always reluctant. Like somebody gives him the hey in character please, and he's always reluctant to be like, oh yeah, whatever. It's in this level of your life or whatever.
At this stage in your life, you've killed a Lich King.
Look, I didn't interrupt your shitty little boring story, did I?
I don't believe it.
Okay, well, I'm telling my story. I'm just merely introducing myself here as fact.
This is where we cut the line from Adam saying, I'm sorry that we're interrupting. And it's the one sort of shame of having to cut it. Definitely had to cut it for pacing, but the one shame that of having to cut that line is that we've lost something that I was trying to set up for Cleric, in that Cleric is the very protective, calm, polite, patient character. He's the one that's most likely to be like kind of the mother of the group and be like, hey, it's okay, come on, let's get you back on your feet and stuff. Even to arrogant assholes of the group. Sorry that we're interrupting. It just seems that you've done quite a lot in your life, like phrasing it in a much more polite way. Yeah, that's why it's not a big deal. He's still got that calm stereotype from his performance of it.
Ah, you folk look like adventurers.
Self here as fact.
Ah.
So Adam talked a little bit about this in the behind the scenes yesterday, but I'll mention it again for people who didn't see his. Excuse me. We were meant to film 4 skits today, but because of rain, one of the outdoor skits, we just couldn't do it. And it was designed in such a way that we would be able to drop it if we had to, so it wasn't as big a deal. I'd kind of already made my peace with it. But then it did mean that we brought this skit forward in the day, and we were like, it's fine, it's the first skit of the series. It means that we can spend more time indoors, more time on this scene than we would have otherwise. Make sure that to get this skit just the way that we exactly want it as the first, make sure we're starting strong. And then it wasn't until like half an hour later or something, after we'd made that decision, that I said to somebody, have we contacted David? And they went, oh shit. and they ran off to the AD and were like, hey, can we get in touch with David and bring him in, please? And so David was sitting at home waiting for his call time like 2 hours later. And thankfully he was just sitting around twiddling his thumbs apparently. So he got the call and got in his car and just fucking raced it here. And it's not close. Like, this location is a good like 45 minutes drive from Auckland CBD. And he raced his way out here, and he got there, and as soon as he arrived, before he could even say hello to anybody, he was raced off to getting some sort of tavern gear. And then still before he got a chance to even say hello to somebody, he was pushed onto set, stood behind the bar, and somebody was like, hey, when Byron says this line, you come out and say this line. And he's like, okay then. And he just had to kind of do something, work in the background as best he could. And then he walks in for the first take that he's here for. He walks in and he goes, I can't remember exactly how he fucked it up, but he fucked up his line. He goes, oh, you guys are adventurers. I've got rats in my oh, no, that's not the line. Oh, fuck. And I turned around, and I don't think I even turned around. I didn't even make eye contact with him because I'm facing away from him at this point, and I'm in armor that makes me like Batman. I can barely even turn my neck. I'm like, can't move much. So I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, David, you had one line. You're fired. And this is the first time, not the first time I've met him, but the first time I've worked with David. And so I'm really glad that he's a funny dude and has a really good sense of humor and took it the right way. You're a horrible person. I am, yes. Season 1 blooper reel. That would be a pretty good idea, actually.
You folk look like a...
introducing myself here as fact.
Ah! You folk look like adventurers. Thank the gods for that. Look, if you can slay the vermin that have overrun my tavern, I will give you all 1 gold piece each.
We accept.
I love that joke. I love this joke of him just pulling himself up and not gaining any height at all. Whoop. Oh, this episode already has bloopers on Patreon. There you go then. Go and join the Viva the Dirt League Patreon, and you'll see some bloopers from this. I should ask them for a link to it. The rat would have went for you next if Rowan didn't kill it. Maybe.
Where are these rats?
Oh, there's one now.
Okay, here we go. First roll of...
Adam talked about that in his stream, but in case you weren't
These
there,
rats.
the floor in the room that we're actually in is like carpeted and kind of gross. It's not the best looking tavern floor. This floor is actually in the room that we normally film in for the Viva La Dirt League D&D. The magic of cinema! So we just took a straight plate. We had a rat handler on set to get this massive rat to come in. Modular Realms, raiding with a party of 8. How was your stream? Did you do some painting? Welcome along. Anyone who hasn't checked out Modular Realms, go check her out. She does. She makes the terrain tiles that we use in the Viva La Dirt League D&D stuff. And she's just recently started streaming herself painting them.
My passive perception is 24.
The Rooster Lord following you. Wait, that's real? No, Sparrow, I'm fucking with you. It's a CGI rat. So we just took a base plate of the floor and then CGI'd a rat running across it.
Okay, here we go.
It's a good CGI rat though.
First roll of the campaign. Ooh, natural 20.
The one sort of regret with this shot is that I kind of wish he'd put his head up more rather than down towards it. Mythical, thank you for the 100 bits. Thank you. You sent me the bloopers link. Awesome. Nobody else needs to. I don't need 700 versions of it. Yeah, I kind of wish he'd look down at it, and as he goes crit, I wish he'd kind of like pulled his head away and grabbed himself in the throat with it rather than in the face, because there has been a little bit of confusion, not in a major way. It's like a very, very, very pedantic minor detail, but there's been a bit of confusion in the comments about like they thought he was biting the rat, rather than the rat biting him, and it would have been made just a touch more clear if he'd have like pulled his head up and grabbed the rat to his throat rather than to his face. But hey, there's the smallest of things.
That's a crit. That's a crit. That does 10 damage, and Fargrim is dead.
So that does 10 damage and Fargrim is dead was not in the original script. It was another line that we added for Alan to say to make it clearer that what's happening in the scene, to make it clearer what's going on. Initially, Adam proposed the line in the edit channel, and Alan recorded it, and I was doing something else, so I hadn't checked that channel that day. And then when I got to it, I was like, nope, that's not going to work, because he proposed 7 damage. Oh, that does 7 damage. And I was like, no, we can't just say things in this. Like, the thing that'll set this series apart from more than any other D&D series online is how much of a pedantic asshole I am for getting things right. If I'm going to say something or show something on camera, you better believe that it can work in D&D. It's one of the things about having me as the showrunner for this campaign. It's going to be realistic in the sense of it could actually happen in D&D. So 7 damage, not enough to kill a wizard. So I was like, no, he needs to. If we're going to show, that's why originally in the script that we showed earlier, I have the rat attack, crit, and then they all just kind of sit around staring for a bit, and then I specifically say in the script the rat bites him again. So it's gone an entire round of everybody not knowing what to do, and then the rat gets a second turn and finishes him off with 2 failed death saves. Nerd. That's me, Maneesies. So if we wanted him to die outright from this single rat attack, then it needed to do enough damage to overkill him, which means in D&D terms, you need to take you down to 0, and then once you're at 0, if the remaining damage is equal to your hit point maximum, then you just die straight away. So 10 damage, he's already on full hit points because we're only introducing him to the game, so there's no reason he would have anything less than his maximum hit points. So 10 damage means that he has to have at most 5 hit points. So I said, okay, is it possible first that a rat can do 10 damage? Yes. So look at a giant rat stat block. it can do 1d4 plus 2, I think it is. So on a crit, he does 2d4 plus 2, which is a maximum of 10 damage. So it just so happens that the DM rolls 2 4s on the d4s. Not a big deal. It's a 1 in 16 chance. So the DM rolls 2d4s and adds 2. He's got 10 damage. That's possible. So I'm saying 10 damage. Now, is it possible for 10 damage to kill him? Yes, if he's got 5 hit points. As a wizard, you start with 6 hit points plus your constitution modifier. So as long as he's got a negative constitution modifier, which again is possible, it can kill him. Bam. Bam, bam, bam. So as long as it's consistent and possible, I'm happy. In case you didn't know, Rob has a little bit of D&D experience, enough to understand this stuff. Yeah. The next episode, not next episode, an episode coming very soon. I think it's episode 2. Yeah, I think it is episode 2. Next episode was one of the hardest to for me to edit, because the editor was like, for pacing we need this and this and this to happen, and I was like, that can't happen in D&D, so I can't have that happen. So we need to find some way of the pacing still working, but with it working realistically to how D&D works, because it's just important to me that it works that way. It's important to me that somebody doesn't watch it and go, well, I mean, that's funny and all, but you can't take 3 turns in a row. Do you have D&D OCD? OCD&D is what I've got. Is it hard to work with editors? No, the editors for the Vive la Dirtly guys are fantastic. But it does mean compromise. I have to be very clear to them about what I want and why I think that what they've proposed to me is not going to work, so that then we can work something out that works together. With that episode, with the next episode, I literally took all of the raw footage and I said, let me do it myself, kind of thing. So I grabbed all the raw footage and I edited together my own version of the edit, and then I sent him that and said, this is what I'm trying to get to. It's easier than just trying to explain everything in one go. And he was like, okay, I see what you mean now. We're going to have to lose this bit and cut down this bit, but I think I can make it work the way you want it to. And he came back to me with a wonderful version of what I was going for. So yeah, I'm very happy with the editors. I'm amazed that you got pacing here as good as you did. That cannot have been easy. Pacing is a pretty big deal. An actor and an editor. I'm not an editor, not by any stretch of the imagination. So how different are you trying to make this from the One for All skits? I'm sure there'll be slight overlap. Just curious. It's not a consideration I'm making, Angel Crab. I'm happy in the knowledge that Elliot and I are very different people with very different writing styles and very different directing styles, and so our skits are going to end up very different. It doesn't really matter to me whether there is overlap or not, because for a while it's really easy to be like, they've done a thing that's similar to my thing and blah blah blah, until I saw a meme that was like, from the content creator's perspective, it's, oh man, their cake is better than my cake. But from the content consumer's perspective, it's, oh great, 2 cakes.
My passive perception is 24.
Twishgo, thank you very much. And as soon as I saw that meme, I was like, that's right. Like, the content consumers aren't going to be like, oh, they did a video about level 1 backstories, and these guys have done level 1 backstories. I can only watch and enjoy one of them. They'll be like, no, I watched 2 different versions of the same joke, and it's funny both ways. So, like, I don't care. Like, I consider them collaborators and colleagues rather than like competitors. So I really don't mind if we do similar content. Can I get pie instead of cake, please? How about parfait? Everybody loves parfait. Before we added the Alan line, which remember was added in the edit afterwards, initially it was just poof, and he falls off the chair, and the line, the overlay line was going to be that's a crit, sorry, and then he doesn't talk about how much damage was done. It's deliberately so that I didn't have to do that mental math of going like, can he kill him in a single round? So initially, before we had the damage amount and the fact that Fargrim is dead is explicitly said, this was meant to be an ambiguous joke as to like, is Rowan's character the edgelord? Who is he? Is he killing the rat, or is he killing Fargrim off camera?
I see you.
Totally not beholder. Welcome along, totally not a beholder. What great many eyes you have. So it was meant to be an ambiguous joke, like a subtle make up your own mind kind of thing.
What's him dealt with?
Especially with that line being like, that's him dealt with. Is he talking about him the rat or him Fagrim because he's being such a pain in the ass? Just one quick thing about this. We got a number of takes. Excuse me. We got a number of takes of Rowan standing, slashing, and then putting his sword away. And I think in one of the takes, maybe he actually got the sword in the holster in his sheath again. But every other take, he just kind of like slid it down the side and held it for the rest of the scene because otherwise you get him going. He's trying to get the, and then he sits, and it's just not as smooth and cool Aragorn type if you can't even put your own sword away. So here he's actually just holding the sword.
What's him dealt with?
Excuse me. Got a weird little scroll with my name on it. Does anyone else... Oh no. My identical...
A weird little scroll with my name on it.
brother! Fuck!
He kept saying identical twin brother here, and I said, can we just make sure that you're not saying the word twin? For reasons.
Does anyone else... Oh no. My identical brother, Fagrim the Great, dead as I live and breathe.
Who the hell are you?
Oh, you might have heard of me.
I love his sudden switch off. His sudden switch off. Like when it's the character at the table, you got to keep bringing it back to like what these characters at the table are actually going through. He's at the table, he's just died and immediately just taken his pencil out and scribbled out his name, and then just written a T at the front of it instead of the F. Or just extended the top of the F backwards to make it look more like a T. And he's like, I'm Targrim the Great now. And he just introduces his character without the rest of the party even knowing about it or the DM having any sort of a say in it. I'm Targrim the Great. I turn up at the tavern as well. And so he's just so much about his backstory that he's not interested in role-playing out this, oh God, the death of my brother. So as soon as he goes, oh, the death of my brother, he just immediately turns back into just regular shit.
My name is Targrim the Great, also known as Targrim.
I love that the music comes back in as well. That music was a hard choice. We went back and forth in the edit a few times about like what music should come in after he's brooding and giving his backstory that's epic and all of this. And eventually we landed on that music. I think it's perfect. And I love the fact that they've brought it back in again after once he starts introducing himself again.
One, the divine mage, the
Someone
orc
asked him about
slayer.
himself.
Thanks for watching the very first episode of D&D Logic.
If you liked it, you should subscribe. There's a button down the bottom.
Also, did you know we actually play D&D?
We actually play D&D. Not a lot of people view the annotations, but I think a few people have for this one because there's been, and it might be helped by the fact that as soon as the video drops on the VLDL channel, I get onto the D&D channel and I start commenting on the video as the VLDL D&D channel, so that people see it replying to them and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you've got a D&D channel." Click, and it seems to be working because we got an extra like 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers to the D&D channel since this episode went live. And an extra like 6,000 subscribers to the main channel, which is like 3 times their regular amount. And in terms of viewers, it was not only above average, apparently, it was above the upper band of... So YouTube kind of gives you an analytics, and it looks like a graph over time, and it's got a single line of what your average videos do, and then there's like a banded line that shows like the upper and lower range of your averages of what your D&D of what your views do over time. And this one followed the line outside of the upper band. It was doing very well indeed. So that bodes well for the future, for sure. Fancy graph! So there you go. Should we watch
Over on the
one more time
VLDL
through
D&D
without all
channel?
my stuff?
There's a link to it down there.
Let's watch it. Let's watch it at my usual speed.
Demokos. When you woke up this morning, sitting on top of your belongings was a letter. You look around, it's an out-of-place group of what could only be your fellow wannabe adventurers sitting at a table.
This is
The rest
how
of
I
you are enjoying
normally
your drinks
watch
when a tiefling
things.
approaches the table.
I see you all got a letter as well. You must be the ones I'm here to meet.
I guess so. I'm Aaron. A sword for hire. What I lack in experience, I make up for in enthusiasm.
Do you know what this is all about?
Don't sorry. I'm just following the instructions of this letter. But hey, I'm used to following orders. My name's Demokos. I'm a cleric. When I was just 13, my younger sister fell in the local river and nearly died. I couldn't save her, so I prayed to anything that would listen, that if they saved her life, I would follow them blindly until the end. Fortunately, Lathander was listening, and I've dedicated my life to him and have been granted minor powers.
That sounds a lot like my story, actually. Really? No, but I did want to go next. You see, I am a performer, an artiste, a mime, a musician, a player, a thespian.
Those are all the same thing.
I am from the small town, and though I did start a busker on the streets, now I am very well known in most of the bars. I received my letter in my tip jar last night. What about you, tall, mysterious, hooded man?
The story of my... Thank you very much. No, seriously, you are too kind. You probably already know who I am because I'm extremely famous around this continent and beyond.
Well, I'm actually...
But for those of you who have been living under a rock for the last 20 years, my name is Fargrim the Great, also known as Fargrim the Just, the Fearless One, or the Divine Mage, or the Kraken Killer. Kraken, you've slain a Kraken. Don't interrupt. I also happen to be commander of the Orc Hunting Special Operatives Team, the Tusk Breakers. 2-time Slayer of a Chromatic Dragon.
Dragons? You've killed 2 dragons already?
But crying out loud, you've been incredibly rude. Would you zip it? I
Just zip it!
happen to sport the only name that sends the shivers down the spine of the fearsome Lich King, Thraddis the Cool.
Sorry, I'm sorry. A Lich King at level 1, or should I say, sorry, at this stage in your life, you've killed a Lich King.
Look, I didn't interrupt your shitty little boring story, did I?
I don't believe it.
Okay, well, I'm telling my story. I'm just merely introducing myself here as fact. You folk are
Shitty little
adventurers.
story.
Gods for that. Look, if you can slay the vermin that have overrun my tavern, I will give you all 1 gold piece each. We accept. Where are these rats? Oh, good one now.
Okay, here we go. First roll of the campaign. Ooh, natural 3. That's great. That does 10 damage, and Fargrim is dead.
What's him dealt with?
Excuse me, got a weird little scroll with my name on it. Does anyone else... Oh no. My identical brother, Fargrim the Great, dead as I live and breathe.
Who the hell are you?
Oh, you might have heard of me. My name is Targrim the Great, also known as Targrim the Just, the Fearless One, the Divine Mage, the Orc Slayer. Thanks for watching the very first episode of D&D Logic. If you liked it, you should subscribe.
1,000,000 times. Thank you for watching it 1,000,000 times. You guys rock. Is there a D&D reason to avoid saying twin? No, there's a linguistic reason to avoid saying twin. Because twin implies 2.
My passive perception is 24. I see you following me.
Sincere Vastia, thank you for the follow. So was it done on purpose that the dwarf interrupted Roman's story and then said that he didn't interrupt his story? Yeah, you obviously missed it when I was going through that before positively, but that was one of the only jokes in the whole skit that I didn't write myself. It was meant to be thrown to the wizard, and then on the day they were like, hey, here he's already saying later in the script, I didn't interrupt your story, so it would be funnier if he actually did interrupt his story earlier. And I was like, yeah, 100%. So there you go. That's the 2 hours to analyze a 4.5-minute video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to stick you on a be right back to go get some water, and then we'll be right back to finish off the rest of the stream.